Stoke City Football Club is an English professional football club based in Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire that plays in the Premier League. Founded as Stoke Ramblers in 1863, the club changed its name to Stoke City in 1925 after Stoke-on-Trent was granted city status. They are the second oldest professional football club in the world, after Notts County, and are one of the founding members of the Football League. Stoke play in the Premier League after winning promotion in 2008. Prior to this, Stoke had not participated in top-flight football for 23 years. Their first, and to date only, major trophy was won in the 1972 Football League Cup final, when the team beat Chelsea 2-1. The club have won the Football League trophy on two occasions, first in 1992 and most recently in 2000. The club's highest league finish in the top division is fourth, which was achieved in the 1935 Euro 36 and 1946 Euro 47 seasons. Stoke have competed in European football in 1972 Euro 73, 1974 Euro 75, and most recently in 2011 Euro 12. Stoke played in the FA Cup final in 2011, finishing runners-up to Manchester City, and has reached 3 FA Cup semi-finals, in 1899 then consecutively in 1971 and 1972. Stoke's home ground is the Britannia Stadium, a 27,740 all-seater stadium. Before the stadium was opened in 1997, the club was based at the Victoria Ground, which had been their home ground since 1878. The club's nickname is the Potters, named after the pottery industry in Stoke-on-Trent, and their traditional home kit is a red and white vertically striped shirt, white shorts and stockings. Stoke's traditional rivals are Midlands clubs West Bromwich Albion and Wolverhampton Wanderers, whilst their local rivals are Port Vale, with whom they contest the Potteries Derby. History, formation and the early years. Stoke City F.C. was formed in 1863 under the name Stoke Ramblers, when pupils of Charterhouse School formed a football club while apprentices at the North Staffordshire Railway Works in Stoke-upon-Trent. The club's first documented match was in October 1868, against an EWMA 15 at the Victoria Cricket Club ground. Henry Armand, the club's founder, was also captain, and scored the club's first ever goal. During this period they played at the Victoria Cricket Ground. However, they switched to a nearby ground at Sweetings Field in 1875 to cope with rising attendances. In 1878, the club merged with Stoke Victoria Cricket Club, and became Stoke Football Club. They moved from their previous ground, Sweetings Field, to the Athletic Club ground, which soon became known as the Victoria Ground. It was around this time that the club adopted their traditional red and white striped kit. In August 1885, the club turned professional. Stoke were one of the 12 founding members of the Football League when it was introduced in 1888. The club struggled in their first two seasons, 1888 Euro 89 and 1889 Euro 90, finishing bottom on both occasions. In 1890 Stoke failed to be re-elected and joined the Football Alliance, which they won, and thus were re-elected to the Football League. Stoke spent the next 15 seasons in the First Division and reached the FA Cup semi-final in the 1898 Euro 99 season before being relegated in 1907. Stoke went bankrupt and entered non-league football until 1914, when the First World War meant the Football League was suspended for 4 years. During the wartime period, Stoke entered the Lancashire Primary and Secondary Leagues. When football recommenced in August 1919, Stoke rejoined the league. The Victoria Ground and Stanley Matthews, the club became owners of the Victoria Ground in 1919. This was followed by the construction of the Butler Street Stand, which increased the overall capacity of the ground to 50,000. In 1925, Stoke-on-Trent was granted city status, and this led the club to change its name to Stoke City F.C. In 1928, the 1930s saw the debut of club's most celebrated player, Stanley Matthews. Matthews, who grew up in Hamley, was an apprentice at the club and made his first appearance in March 1932, against Bury, at the age of 17. By end of the decade, Matthews had established himself as an England international and as one of the best footballers of his generation. Stoke achieved promotion from the second division in 1932, Euro 33, Euro as champions, Euro. However, Matthews only featured in 15 games in this season. He did however score his first goal for the club in a 3-1 win against local rivals Port Vale. By 1934, the club's average attendance had risen to over 23,000, which in turn allowed the club to give the manager Tom Mather increased transfer funds. The club was now considered one of the top teams in the country. It was in this period that the club recorded its record league win, a 10-3 win over West Bromwich Albion in February 1937. In April of that year, the club achieved its record league crowd, Euro 51,373 against Arsenal. Freddie Steele's 33 league goals in the 1936 Euro 37 season remains a club record. Title challenge and league decline. Following the resumption of the FA Cup after World War II, tragedy struck on March 9, 1946, as 33 fans died and 520 were injured during a sixth-round tie-away against Bolton Wanderers. This came known as the Burnden Park disaster. In 1946 Euro 47, Stoke mounted a serious title challenge. The club needed a win in their final game of the season to win the First Division title. However, a 2-1 defeat to Sheffield United meant the title went to Liverpool instead. Stanley Matthews left with 3 games remaining of the 1946 Euro 47 season, opting to join Blackpool at the age of 32. Stoke were relegated from the First Division in 1952 Euro 53. During the season, Bob McGrory resigned as the club's manager after 17 years in the role. Former Wolverhampton Wanderers defender Frank Taylor took over at the club looking to gain promotion back to the First Division. However, after 7 seasons in the Second Division without promotion, Taylor was sacked. The Tony Waddington years. Tony Waddington was appointed as the club's manager in June 1960. He joined the club in 1952 as a coach, before being promoted to assistant manager in 1957. Waddington pulled off a significant coup by enticing Stanley Matthews, a Euro then 46 years old, back to the club, 14 years after he had departed. The return of Matthews helped Stoke to an improved 8th position in 1961, Euro 62. Promotion was achieved in the following season, with Stoke finishing as champions. In their first season back in the First Division, 1963 Euro 64, Waddington guided Stoke to a mid-table finish. Matthews remained influential, as he helped the club to the final in 1964, which they lost to Leicester City over 2 legs. Waddington counted on experience. Dennis Viollet, Jackie Muddy, Roy Vernon, Maurice Setters and Jimmy McElroy were all players signed in the latter stages of their careers. Matthews was awarded a knighthood for services to football in the 1965 New Year's Honours List. This was followed by his 701st, and final, league appearance for the club against Fulham in February 1965, shortly after his 50th birthday. Gordon Banks, England's 1966 World Cup winning goalkeeper, joined in 1967 for a £52,000 from Leicester. Regarded as the best goalkeeper in the world, Banks proved to be a shrewd signing for Waddington as he helped the club maintain stability in the First Division. For one season in 1967, Stoke City F.C. was imported as the Cleveland Stokers of Cleveland, Ohio, playing in the United Soccer Association. The team emerged as runner-up of the Eastern Division, falling 1 point short of the championship final. The club won its first major trophy on March 4, 1972 in the League Cup final. Stoke beat favourites Chelsea 2-1 in the final at Wembley Stadium in front of a crowd of 97,852 spectators. Preceding this victory, Stoke had progressed through 11 games in order to reach the final. This included 4 games with West Ham United in the semi-final. The 2-legged tie was replayed twice. Stoke fared well in the FA Cup. The club progressed to the semi-final stage in both the 1970 Euro 71 and 1971 Euro 72 seasons. However, on both occasions Stoke lost to Arsenal in a replay. Stoke City also became the First Division side to play a match on a Sunday, when they faced Chelsea on January 27, 1974. In January 1976 the roof of the Butler Street stand was blown off in a storm. The repair bill of nearly £250,000 put the club in financial trouble. Key players such as Alan Hudson, Mike Pajic and Jimmy Greenhoff were sold to cover the repairs. With the team depleted, Stoke were relegated in the 1976 Euro 77 season. Waddington, after a spell of 17 years in charge, left the club after a 1-0 home defeat to Leicester in March 1977. The managerial roundabout, Waddington was replaced by George Eastham in March 1977. However, he could not prevent the club's relegation to the second division in 1976 Euro 77. Eastham left in January 1978, after only 10 months in charge, and was replaced by Alan Durban from Shrewsbury Town. Durban achieved promotion to the First Division in the 1978 Euro 79 season, but after consolidating the club's position in the First Division he left to manage Sunderland in 1981. Richie Barker was appointed for the 1981 Euro 82 season but was sacked in December 1983 and replaced by Bill Asprey. Asprey decided to bring back veteran Alan Hudson, and the decision paid off as an improved second half of the season saw Stoke avoid relegation on the final day of the 1983 Euro 84 season. The 1984 Euro 85 season proved to be disastrous. Stoke finished the season with only 17 points, with just 3 wins all season. Mick Mills was appointed player-manager for the 1985 Euro 86 season, but was unable to sustain a challenge for promotion and was sacked in November 1989. His successor, Alan Ball, Jr. became the club's 5th manager in 10 years. Ball struggled in his first season in charge, 1989 Euro 90, and Stoke were relegated to the third tier of English football after finishing bottom of the second division. Ball kept his job for the start of the following season, 1990 Euro 91. But departed during February 1991, in an indifferent season that saw Stoke finish 15th in the third division. Stoke's lowest league position in the Football League. Ball's successor, Lou McCary, was appointed in May 1991, prior to the start of the 1991 Euro 92 season. He clinched silverware for the club. The Football League trophy was won with a 1-0 victory against Stockport County at Wembley, with Mark Stein scoring the only goal of the game. The following season, 1992 Euro 93, promotion was achieved from the third tier. McCary left in October 1993 to be replaced by Joe Jordan. Stein also departed, in a club record a £1.5 million move to Chelsea. Jordan's tenure in charge was short, leaving the club less than a year after joining, and Stoke opted to reappoint Lou McCary only 12 months after he had left. Stoke finished 4th in 1995 Euro 96 but were defeated in the play-off semi-final by Leicester City. McCary left the club at the end of the season. His last game in charge was the final league game at the Victoria Ground. Mike Sharon, who was signed 2 years previously from Norwich City, was sold for a club record fee of £2.5 million in 1997. The Britannia Stadium and the Icelandic takeover, 1997 Euro 98 saw Stoke move to its new ground, the Britannia Stadium, after 119 years at the Victoria Ground. Sheik Bates, McCary's assistant, was appointed manager for the club's first season in the new ground. He did not last long though, and was replaced by Chris Kamara in January 1998. Kamara could not improve the club's fortunes either, and he too left in April. Alan Durban, previously Stoke's manager 2 decades earlier, took charge for the remainder of season. Despite his best efforts, Durban was unable to keep the club up, as defeat on the final day of the season consigned Stoke to relegation from Division 1. Brian Little, formerly manager of Aston Villa, took charge for the 1998 Euro 99 season. Despite an impressive start, the team's form tailed off dramatically in the latter stages of the season, which led to Little leaving the club at the end of the season. His successor, Gary Megson, was only in the job for 4 months. Megson was forced to depart following a takeover by Stoke Holding, an Icelandic consortium, who purchased a 66% share in Stoke City F.C. for the sum of £6.6 million. Stoke became the first Icelandic-owned football club outside of Iceland. Stoke appointed the football club's first overseas manager, Guðjón Þórðarson, who helped Stoke City win the Football League trophy and earn promotion to the First Division in 2001 (Euro 02). The auto windscreens shield was won in the 1999 Euro 2000 season, in April 2000, with a win over Bristol City in front of a crowd of 85,057 at Wembley. Þórðarson achieved promotion at the third time of asking in 2001 (Euro 02). A second successive fifth-place finish ensured a playoff spot. Cardiff City were defeated in the semi-final before a 2-0 win against Brentford at the Millennium Stadium secured promotion. Despite achieving the goal of promotion, Þórðarson was sacked by Gunnar Garðarsson only days after the club won promotion. Steve Copperill was drafted in as Þórðarsson's replacement prior to the start of the 2002 Euro 03 season, but quit in October 2002 after only 4 months in charge. Tony Pulis was appointed as Stoke's new manager shortly after. Pulis steered Stoke clear of relegation, with a 1-0 win over Reading on the final day of the season keeping the club in the division. However, Pulis was sacked at the end of the 2004 Euro 05 season, following disagreement between himself and the club's owners. Dutch manager Johan Boskamp was named as Pulis' successor on June 29, 2005, only a day after Pulis was sacked. Boskamp brought in a number of new players from Europe, but despite his spending his side was inconsistent, and only a mid-table finish was achieved. Boskamp left at the end of the 2005 Euro 06 season, amidst a takeover bid by former chairman Peter Coates. On May 23, 2006, Coates completed his takeover of Stoke City, marking the end of Gunnar Garðarsson's chairmanship of the club. Coates chose former manager Tony Pulis as Boskamp's successor in June 2006. Pulis took Stoke close to a playoff place, but an eventual 8th-place finish was achieved in the 2006 Euro 07 season. Return to top-flight football. Stoke won automatic promotion to the Premier League on the final day of the 2007 Euro 08 season, finishing in second place in the Championship. A defeat to Bolton Wanderers on the opening day of the season meant bookmaker Paddy Power paid out on Stoke to be relegated, but the team's fortunes quickly changed. Stoke managed to turn the Britannia Stadium into a fortress, making it difficult for teams to pick up points there. In their first home game, Stoke managed to beat Aston Villa 3-2, and wins also came against Tottenham Hotspur, Arsenal, Sunderland and West Bromwich Albion. After a 2-1 win at Hull City, Stoke confirmed their place in the Premier League as the Potters finished 12th in their return to the top flight, with a total of 45 points. Stoke finished the following 2009 Euro 10 season in a respectable 11th place, with 47 points. Stoke also made it to the quarter-finals of the FA Cup for the first time since 1972, beating York City, Arsenal and Manchester City before losing out to eventual winners Chelsea. A 3-0 win over West Bromwich Albion in the 2010 Euro 11 season gave Stoke 2 new records. Their largest away win in the Premier League, and their largest top division away win since 1982. It was also the first time since the 1983 Euro 84 season that Stoke had won 3 top-flight matches in a row, with manager Pulis hailed the new records as a fantastic achievement. Stoke reached the FA Cup final for the first time, beating Cardiff City, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Brighton and Hove Albion, West Ham United and a famous win of 5-0 against Bolton Wanderers. However, they lost the final 1-0 to Manchester City. By reaching the final, Stoke qualified for the 2011 Euro 12 UEFA Europa League. In the UEFA Europa League, Stoke advanced past Hajduk Split, FC Thun, and a tough group containing Besiktas, Dynamo Kyiv and Maccabi Tel Aviv, which Stoke managed to progress through, finishing in second position. City's reward was a tie against Spanish giants Valencia, and despite putting up a spirited second-leg performance, Stoke went out 2-0 on aggregate. In the Premier League, Stoke made the high-profile signing of Peter Crouch as they finished in a mid-table position for a fourth time. The 2012 Euro 13 season saw Stoke make little progress, and Pulis left the club by mutual consent on May 21, 2013. He was replaced by fellow Welshman Mark Hughes, who signed a 3-year contract on May 30, 2013. Hughes led Stoke to a 9th-place finish in 2013 Euro 14, their highest position in the Premier League and best finish since 1974 Euro 75. Stadium. It is not clear where Stoke's original playing fields were located. Their first pitch was certainly in the site of a present burial ground in Lonsdale Street, although there is evidence that they also played on land near to the Copeland Arms public house on Campbell Road. In 1875 they moved to Sweetings Field, which was owned by the Mayor of Stoke, Alderman Sweeting. It is estimated that as many as 250 spectators were attending home matches at Sweetings Field, paying 1 penny for admission. Stoke were to stay at Sweetings Field until a merger with the Stoke Victoria Cricket Club in March 1878, when Stoke moved to the Victoria Ground. The first match to be played at the Victoria Ground was a friendly against Torquay Rangers in the 28th March 1878. Stoke won 1-0 in front of 2,500 fans. The ground was originally an oval shape to cater for athletics, and this shape was retained for the next 30 years. Major development work began in the 1920s, and by 1930 the ground had lost its original shape. By 1935 the ground capacity was up to the 50,000 mark. A record crowd of 51,380 packed into the ground on March 29, 1937 to watch a league game against Arsenal. Floodlights were installed in 1956 and another new main stand was built. Over the weekend of the Three Quarters in January 1976, gale force winds blew the roof off the Butler Street stand. Stoke played a home league match against Middlesbrough at Vale Park whilst repair work was ongoing. The Stoke End stand was improved in 1979 and through the 1980s more improvements were made. By 1995 Stoke drew up plans to make the ground an all-seater stadium, to comply with the Taylor Report. However, the club decided it would be better to leave the Victoria Ground and relocate to a new site. In 1997, Stoke left the Victoria Ground after 119 years, and moved to the modern 28,384 all-seater Britannia Stadium at a cost of £14.7 a million. Stoke struggled at first to adjust to their new surroundings and were relegated to the third tier in the first season at the new ground. In 2002 a record 28,218 attended an FA Cup match against Everton. With Stoke gaining promotion to the Premier League in 2008 attendances increased. However, the capacity was reduced to 27,500 due to segregation, supporters and rivalry. While much of the support that the club enjoys is from the local Stoke-on-Trent area, there are a number of exile fan clubs, notably in London and stretching from Scandinavia to countries further afield such as Australia, Russia and USA. A capacity 28,000 crowd regularly turn out to see them in the Premier League. Stoke have had problems in the past with football hooliganism in the 1970s, 80s, 90s and early 2000s which gave the club a bad reputation. This was to the actions by the Naughty 40 firm which associated itself with the club and was formed by supporter Mark Chester. Mark Chester reformed himself and now works as a youth inclusion promoter. In 2003, the BBC described Stoke City as having one of the most active and organised football hooligan firms in England. In response to these criticisms, the club introduced an away travel ID scheme. This was subsequently suspended in 2008 as a result of improved behaviour and an enhanced reputation. More recently, Stoke City's fans and their stadium have been perceived as loud, friendly, passionate and modern, welcoming as guests Sugar Ray Leonard and Diego Maradona. There is in the media now genuine admiration for the volume and volatility of the club's loyal support. Stoke announced that they will offer supporters free bus travel to every Premier League away game in the 2013 Euro 14 season. In November 2008, A group of Stoke fans were forced by the Greater Manchester Police to leave Manchester before a league match against Manchester United. The human rights group Liberty took up the case of the fans, and Manchester Police eventually apologised for their actions and the fans were awarded compensation. Supporters of the club have adopted Delilah as their club anthem since the 1970s. It was adopted by the fans after a supporter was heard singing it in a local pub. Some of the song's original lyrics have been adapted for the terraces, but the essence of the song remains the same. Stoke's official club anthem is We'll Be With You, which was recorded by the Stoke players prior to the 1972 Football League Cup final. Stoke's local rivals are Port Vale, based in the Burslem area of Stoke-on-Trent. As the two clubs have regularly been in different divisions, there have only been 46 league matches between the two sides, with the last match being in 2002. Regardless of the lack of games, the Potteries derby is often a tight and close game of football with few goals being scored. Stoke have won 19 matches whilst Vale have won 15. With Stoke City's rise to the Premier League coinciding with traditional rival Port Vale's relegation to League Two, and a hard-fought promotion battle with another West Midlands outfit West Bromwich Albion, rivalry with West Brom fans has increased. Another rivalry exists with fellow West Midlands club Wolverhampton Wanderers. Kit and crest. Kit. Stoke's traditional kit is red and white striped shirts with white shorts and socks. Their first strip was navy and cardinal hoops with white knickerbockers and hoop stockings. This changed to black and blue hoops before the club settled on red and white stripes in 1883. However, in 1891 the Football League decided that only one club could use one style of strip per season and Sunderland were allowed to take red and white stripes. So between 1891 to 1908 Stoke used a variety of kits with plain maroon being the most common. In 1908 Stoke lost their league status and were able to finally revert to red and white, and when they rejoined the league in 1919 the rule was scrapped. Since then Stoke have forever used red and white striped shirts, with the only time when they diverted from this was for 2 seasons in the mid-1980s which saw them wear a pinstriped shirt. Crest. Stoke's first club crest was a stylised S, which was used by players in 1882 who would stitch the crest onto their shirts. However, this practice soon faded away. In the 1950s Stoke began using the shield from the Stoke-on-Trent coat of arms, which was used infrequently until 1977. A new and simpler club crest was introduced as Stafford knot and pottery kiln represented local tradition, while red and white stripes were also added. This lasted until 1992 when the club decided to use the entire Stoke-on-Trent coat of arms, which included the club's name at the top of the crest. They changed their crest in 2001 to the current version, which includes their nickname the Potters. For the 2012 Euro 13 season they used a special version to mark the club's 150th anniversary, which included the club's Latin motto Vis Unita Fortior. Sponsorship, players, as of June 27, 2014, first team squad. Note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan. Note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Development squad, as of July 7, 2014, note, flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Reserves and Academy. Former players. For details of former players, see List of Stoke City FC players, List of Stoke City FC players, List of Stoke City FC players and category, Stoke City FC players. Player records. For player records, including player awards, see List of Stoke City FC records and statistics. Stoke City Ladies. Club management. Managerial history. Honours, League. Football League Championship, runners-up, 2007 Euro 08, Football League 2nd Division, 3, champions, 1932 Euro 33, 1962 Euro 63, 1992 Euro 93, runners-up, 1921 Euro 22, 3rd place, 1978 Euro 79, playoff winners, 2001 a Euro 02, Football League 3rd Division North, 1, Champions, 1926 a Euro 27, Football Alliance, 1, Champions, 1890 a Euro 91, Birmingham and District League, 1, Champions, 1910 a Euro 11, Southern League Division 2, 2, Champions, 1909 a Euro 10, 1914 a Euro 15, Runners-up, 1910 a Euro 11, Cups, FA Cup, Runners-up, 2010 a Euro 11, Semi-finalists, 1898 a Euro 99, 1970 a Euro 71, 1971 a Euro 72 League Cup, 1, Winners, 1971 a Euro 72, Runners-up, 1963 a Euro 64, Football League Trophy, 2, Winners, 1991 a Euro 92, 1999 a Euro 2000, Watney Cup, 1, Winners. 1973, Staffordshire Senior Cup, 14, Winners, 1877 a Euro 78, 1878 a Euro 79, 1903 a Euro 04, 1913 a Euro 14, 1933 a Euro 34, 1964 a Euro 65, 1968 a Euro 69, 1970 a Euro 71, 1974 a Euro 75, 1975 a Euro 76, 1981 a Euro 82, 1992 a Euro 93, 1994 a Euro 95, 1998 a Euro 99, Runners-up, 1882 a Euro 83, 1885 a Euro 86, 1894 a Euro 95, 1900 a Euro 01, 1902 a Euro 03, 2002 a Euro 03, 2005 a Euro 06, 2010 a Euro 11, Birmingham Senior Cup, 2, Winners, 1901, 1914, Runners-up, 1910, 1915, 1920, 1921 Isle of Man Trophy, 3, Winners, 1987, 1991, 1992, Runners-up, 1985, Bass Charity Vase, 5. Winners, 1980, 1991, 1992, 1995, 1998, Runners-up, 1890, 1894, 1990, 1996, Records. Record appearances, Eric Skeels a Euro 592 appearances, John Mathew a Euro 675 appearances, record goal scorers, John Ritchie a Euro 176 goals, Freddie Steele a Euro 140 goals, record signing, Peter Crouch signed from Tottenham Hotspur, a £10 a million, record sale, Tunke Angstrom Anla plus or minus sold to VfL Wolfsburg a £4.5 a million, record results, record win, 26 a Euro 0 v Mo Kop 1877, record league victory, 10 a Euro 3 v West Bromwich Albion, record league defeat, 0 a Euro 10 v Preston North End, record FA Cup victory, 11 a Euro 0 v Stourbridge, record FA Cup defeat, 0 a Euro 8 v Wolverhampton Wanderers, record League Cup victory, 6 a Euro 2 v Chelsea, record League Cup defeat, 0 a Euro 8 v Liverpool, record Premier League win, 4 a Euro 0 v Newcastle United March 19, 2011, record Premier League defeat, 0 a Euro 7 v Chelsea April 25, 2010, attendance records, 51,130 at the Victoria Ground v Arsenal March 29, 1937. 28,218 at the Britannia Stadium v Everton January 5, 2002, European record. References. External links, official website, Stoke City FC. On BBC Sport, Club News a Euro recent results a Euro upcoming fixtures a Euro club statistics, Stoke City at Sky Sports, Stoke City at Premier League.